So now I'd like to introduce Andre Christ, CEO and founder of LeanIX. I've followed them for many, many years, doing awesome stuff in enterprise architecture. Ironically, I was going to attend their event after Sapphire Orlando back in 2020, but a lot of things happened in 2022 today. So very pleased to have Andre join us. Very pleased to have continued interaction and engagement with LeanIX. And I would like to turn things over to Andre to really share with us the role of EA on the journey to the intelligent enterprise. Andre?
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for the kind introduction, and of course for the perfect segue to my presentation today, because I heard in the last conversation like the recommendation for enterprise architects to be more the coach, to be more collaborative, be less focused on technology theory and more pragmatic into recommendations. So these are all things why I decided to found LeanIX 10 years ago. So it's like really motivating to hear that those topics also come up and surface in surveys and in scientific research. So it's really great to see. Today I'd like to talk a bit about like the intelligent enterprise and how LeanIX can enable the path towards this. So let me explain a little bit why what like we're all seeking for, what our intelligent enterprises want to achieve. And if we look at the magic triangle of cost, quality, and agility, of course, we all want to reach the best solutions at minimal cost, at highest quality, maximum agility to react to the market changes. However, if we look now into what are really the factors we can influence today, then we have hidden factors for this. And I think it's becoming more and more known to leaders, experts in the field, that the hidden factors today to influence this triangle is actually software complexity. And this is typically on different dimensions. So it's what we often experience is the tip of the iceberg, but not having transparency on functional complexity, interface complexity, data and technology, and understanding that in a business context does not give us the power to actually influence this magic triangle. Why am I convinced that this understanding is super crucial? Because we're seeing major shifts happening, which are increasing this granularity. So let me talk you through this. And the slide is a bit busy with a lot of text, but essentially there's three big areas or three big trends we're seeing. First is the API economy. Of course, for the business, the big benefit is composing applications faster, being able to stitch them together with reusable capabilities. For IT, it means higher efforts to protect API endpoints and so on. If we look at the SAP approach in this field, it's the integration suite allowing to seamlessly integrate on-premise and cloud applications. So I think one major area which is increasing the granularity of services we need to actually stitch together to create something meaningful. The second piece is software as a service. The adoption of SaaS is supposed to grow significantly to more than 250 billion by 2025. It increases productivity, it increases employee experience, but of course it also requires IT to look into security risks, optimize procurement, ensure data integration. And of course, if we look at the SAP approach, then we see industry cloud providing simplified access to innovative vertical solutions across the industries. So the push for more software as a services, which are made for dedicated use cases, is clearly there. And last but not least, the big topic, citizen developer. How can we unlock the power of software development in a time where we have constrained resources, constrained skills? So I think this is helping a lot. And also if we look here at the SAP approach, SAP AppGyver to build custom application extension for S/4HANA, there's a clear push to drive this forward. So it really cries for the need for better understanding how do we manage the granularity if we want to influence the magic triangle. Now, what do we do? How does LeanIX fit into this picture? Our mission is actually to help organizations or to enable organizations to continuously transform. More than 10 years ago, we started with the topic of enterprise architecture management because we wanted to help the companies to manage the transformation and risk of their IT landscapes. We have seen over time that software as a service adoption is accelerating. That's why we've added to the categories we're supporting the topic of SaaS management, so optimizing cost and productivity of SaaS subscriptions. And on the other hand, supporting organizations in building reliable digital products faster, because more and more of the value creation relies on digital products now, and product teams who are building that software. So we believe that enterprise architecture needs to be closely linked with those two categories in order to unfold the maximum value. We serve almost 700 customers today. 50 out of that are Global 500 customers. Of course, I'm very excited about the long-standing partnership we have with SAP Signavio. So with Gero, who has been speaking yesterday, talking a bit about the process perspective, and I think referencing also, and I'd like to pick this thought a bit up. How do we fit into that picture, and how do we help here? So we also share the view that there are different layers on the way to the intelligent enterprise, on the level of business technology platform, thinking about app development, integration, data analytics, and AI. Then the layer of enterprise resource management with ERP systems, CRM, HCM, and so on. And then end-to-end processes which kind of go across those systems and connect this in order to make the enterprise intelligent. And so how do we think we can accelerate in a joint approach, side by side, the journey? It's by mastering the technical and business transformation challenges. So we believe that it's not sufficient just to look at it from a technical perspective, but of course, from a process perspective and business perspective. Then to provide end-to-end traceability through this, integrated in both from a process perspective and EA perspective. Managing the complexity and the continuous evolution in a collaborative way. So it's no longer sufficient to have a few architects working on that. You need to establish a broader set of tools which is accessible and usable by people who are not just skilled in process management, architecture management, but who is supposed to benefit from that information. So collaboration is a big theme here. And last but not least, detailing out the roadmaps for the transformation projects, and also being able to track on what step of that journey are we actually with the transformation program. So that's why we believe this journey is a side-by-side journey. Now, trying to break it a bit down, how we think enterprise architecture can help in SAP transformations in general, and I would speak about S/4HANA in a bit. We believe it's accelerating transformations, gaining transparency and enabling collaboration, and most importantly also identifying and managing the risk. So what does it mean? I'd like to give you a few examples on that. Accelerating transformation means to actually be able to strategize and plan out what the transformation is actually going to do. It allows to take faster and more reliable decisions based on up-to-date data, which is like not in a silo, but is supported by a broader range in the organization. And then being able to pull ad hoc reports, which is actually reducing the manual work when you report on the progress of this transformation exercise. Gaining transparency is crucial because it's necessary to have like a 360-degree view of the transformation initiatives going on, their as-is state, and of course also the to-be architecture. What we see in many companies we work together with, of course, there's a good understanding of the as-is state, but now is also the time to plan out how are the capabilities changing, which applications need to be sunset, which need to be implemented, which need to be introduced, and also the dependencies on integrations with systems need to be considered. So this is where transparency and collaboration across departments can help a lot. And what we often, of course, see is within the SAP world, there's very, very good systems available to have this transparency. However, if you go beyond the world, so all the systems which are connected into the SAP landscape, this is actually where it's becoming a bit harder to create that knowledge. And this is where I think enterprise architecture can be extremely helpful in this area. Also, what enterprise architecture can help with is understanding the risk associated with outdated software and hardware life cycles of the current and future components. not only of the SAP landscape, but also beyond that, of course. And then last but not least, being able to reduce the downtimes and the project costs, because later downstream constraints can actually be identified early on. So these are the big three benefits. Now, I'd like to break it a bit down to two areas. One on the S/4HANA transformation, to make it a bit more tangible now, how we think about that. If you think in theory, like what are actually the challenges of business transformation, and we consider this journey not as like many companies do, like a lift and shift of the technology, but it's really like a change. And 80% of the transfer organizations actually confirm that it is important to move their business forward. However, more than 70% of existing SAP customers are still waiting. And then there's a big number of transformation projects actually failing. So one area is not knowing what's beyond or below the tip of the iceberg. What's the complexity underneath? The second topic is the idea that there's like a project taking cure of it, and where you do like a planning and then there's a project and you go back to normal. Our philosophy at LeanIX is that the change is happening much more continuous in the future. It's no longer that you have a lot of upfront planning in a project, then you execute the project and then you are back in the normal state. But I think there's a big benefit of companies to actually get used to a continuous transformation. This concept is very known in the IT world, in continuous deployment, continuous testing, and in many, many areas, but unfortunately not enough in the management discipline of IT yet. And I think this is where we would like to advocate as LeanIX, that not considering it too much as a one-off, a big project effort, but to approach this in a much more agile fashion. In order to do this, it requires to have data available for it. Why do we believe it's so important? Well, we have done a survey ourselves to understand what is the involvement of enterprise architects in the S4 project phases. And it's interesting, of course, in the planning phase, there's high significance than in the project preparation, but also in the implementation and rollout. So it's not an exercise where you do a magic target architecture and then the enterprise architecture work stops, but it goes through all those phases. And then, of course, if we look at the top challenges, it speaks again towards understanding the dependencies between the systems, primarily between SAP and non-SAP systems, helping to define the roadmap, housekeeping of legacy systems, so really managing the life cycle of those systems, identifying the stakeholders, and then creating the use cases. So these were like the top 5 challenges which were named. I'm actually excited to say that together with SAP Signavio, we have actually worked on how does our method and how does our tool set align with the SAP Activate method. So supporting the whole process, discovering, preparing, exploring, realizing, deploying, and running in this journey. And in each of those steps, there's a more system and architecture perspective. So this is what LeanIX actually contributes to the table. And then there's a process perspective where SAP Signavio kicks in and supports this. So you see that, just to pick out a few steps. In the preparation step, with LeanIX, we provide an inventory of all the applications being affected in the context of their business capabilities, and then understanding also the responsibilities there. In the exploration phase, it's all around pointing out the dependencies. So for example, using a data flow diagram to understand what are the crucial flows of data objects, what technologies is this relying on. In the realize phase, it's moving from looking at the as-is state to looking at the to-be state. So mapping out the target state, the roadmap, the big projects, and then the changes on the landscape. So we're more than happy to go with you and explain this journey in a bit deeper fashion if you're interested in that. I'd like to highlight or deep dive into 2 areas. One is a very crucial step, which we often experience, is identifying enterprise-wide dependencies. So one of the frequently used starting points in LeanIX is actually using the interface circle diagram to understand what are the provided and consumed interfaces of the single systems. So it allows you to understand where APIs are required to transform systems, and it also maps out actually what is actually the downstream dependency of the systems relying on the APIs. So that's one aspect, and from here it's then possible to dig deeper into the specific systems, to show data flow diagrams and generate that automatically based on the information. Another perspective is here, which is now the deep dive. So now that I have an understanding of like all the dependencies, I can deep dive in specific areas using the data flow views here. And it's interesting that we can overlay the lifecycle stages of the system. So you can easily identify which of those systems are going to be end of life and what are we going to do actually with our data flows? How will they look actually in the future? So you see in the analyze and explore phase, two very useful views here in order to understand the dependencies and prepare for the transformation. Of course, a typical question is now, how do you do that with the entire SAP landscape? Well, this is a topic we've put a ton of knowledge and experience now in over the years. So we map out the landscapes very well into our meta model. You see that here on the left-hand side, how the systems map out on the different layers. So we typically speak about applications, IT components, technology stacks, providers, and we have full details on that on docs.leanix.net. So if you're interested how we map that out in a specific enterprise architecture meta model, have a look at that documentation and approach us if you have any questions. So last but not least, I'd like to put the focus a bit at the SAP BPI integration. So this is coming from the idea that LeanIX and SAP BPI add value together. So we believe the journey from as is to the intelligent enterprise goes to different layers or involves different architectural layers, the people aspect, the process aspect, capability, data, application, and technology. And this is where this great partnership comes in with Signavio. And I believe when Gary and I first met in 2013, so many years back, and thought about how do we integrate like business process management and enterprise architecture, we of course didn't anticipate all the change needs coming up also in SAP landscape. But now knowing that, we find it very, very beneficial to have this really traceable view all the way from the people process perspective down to the technology perspective. Now, how does this go in a very tangible fashion? On the left-hand side, you see the enterprise architecture meta model of LeanIX. So in the different levels of strategy and transformation, business architecture, application and data architecture, and technical architecture. So we follow the philosophy to have a very well understandable model. So we're not going for like dozens of different objects to map out the landscape, but rather a very focused approach so that there's a broad understanding in the organization. You see here which of the objects have a high overlap now with SAP BPI, and where also our integration then kicks in, which makes sure that this data is automatically exchanged. So, and I'm going to show you an example how that looks like. So basically what it does is if you manage your applications, business capabilities, the objectives, projects, and so on within LeanIX, then you can with adding just the API keys on the LeanIX side, you can start syncing those two systems. So in that moment, you will actually be able to leverage all the applications, business capabilities, and more within Signavio's or SAP BPI to actually model your processes, and vice versa. You actually get the information about all the processes linked into LeanIX. Now, how does this look like? So this is a view here into LeanIX, where you actually see a specific process showing up. And then we, of course, then import the process image here. So you can have a preview of the SAP BPI process model here. And the key thing here is we're not just importing the image, we're also analyzing the process and making it usable in the architecture world. So for example, you can then filter out, show me all the processes which are like affected or which include a specific application, or what happens or which processes are affected if I sunset a specific application. So there's a lot of very interesting reports all of a sudden possible by combining those two worlds. Now, as I'm approaching a little bit the end of the time, and I'd like to leave some room, of course, for questions or interaction, I'd like to point you to two things here. One is the academic edition. I see here a huge community of enterprise architects out there, and we've heard a bit about like more the scientific approach to it. I'm really proud to say that my team is offering the academic edition for free. So you can go to our website to use this, and we would be excited if that offer is used to kind of get the category, get the knowledge about enterprise architecture out there, and ensure that more like young leaders in architecture will emerge over time. And I'm also excited to see the panel session later on. Also, and I think this is a great idea, Paul, setting this up, and I hope this year can contribute a bit to making further leaders and talent curious about this important topic. Of course, in this difficult time, I'd also like to share one thing, as we're having a big architecture community here. If you have contacts to companies in the Ukraine who could benefit from architecture solutions, we're making our solution free for use for companies in Ukraine and organizations there. We see a big need to defend and understand against cyber attacks now, but obviously also, as we hope in the future, rebuilding and setting up again. So our commitment is here to provide our tooling and our knowledge for free. So I hope if there's anyone in this community here who could like share this message or has contacts here, would be glad if you spread the message. With that, having said, Paul, I'd like to hand it back to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we've got some questions coming in, and also I'll moderate those for you, Andre. And thanks again for sharing your great insights. And you know, actually, I'll may put you at spot on one thing in terms of a collaboration opportunity. And by the way, thanks to you for your help in recommending Danielle for participation in our panel next. But we're going to take a focus on women in enterprise architecture as a community. I would sense that is something you're very keen to do some collaboration on. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Look, I believe it's a key thing in our industry. It's not specific to enterprise architecture, honestly. I think it's a broader scheme. So there's I think it starts in the end, and that's one of the drivers for our academic edition too. Like, how can we start earlier? Yeah, how can we make it more attractive for young talents to pick this discipline and think that it's something where they can have a big impact too. So I hope that we can contribute a little bit. I see great leaders stepping up, and I'm super thrilled that Daniela is willing to be part of the panel today. I've seen her speaking live before, so that's really great to see. And I would wish we could have actually more people stepping up there. So whatever we can do here, let me know. We're happy to support this.
We'll do. And here's our first question here: is the LeanIX EM tool with the red, yellow, and green color codes based on the latest SAP S/4HANA 2021 industry value maps or LeanIX map we need to maintain?
Yeah, I probably need let me look into that. Yeah, now I get it. Okay, good. Yeah, look, I mean, one of the steps we're currently doing, obviously, is we have started to collect different business capability maps. And I'm not sure if this is already going in the right direction, but what we do is already on our website, we provide different types of business capability maps which can be automatically imported. Yeah. One of the activities is definitely to explore further how can we tailor this even more to specific value maps which we can like automatically import. So this is definitely where I think there's a good opportunity. What we see already today is that our proposals for different industry capability maps is used. Again, you can look at our website. We provide example capability models for different industries, and then you can like you can import them into a workspace as well. So happy to collaborate on this more. Please feel free to reach out and help us also understand this probably a little bit deeper. Yeah.
Awesome. So with comment and a bit of a question on terms of the BPI integration approach is very interesting. In a way, the great session that also referenced you this morning on that Wasilios did on business process and intelligence. And you've been working with Signavio, I think, what did you say, since 2013?
Yeah, I think that's the first time Gero and I met in Berlin. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, what are you seeing from how enterprise architects are sort of engaged in, maybe both from an introduction of Signavio and also ongoing usage and their engagement with the business? Any commentary on that based on your many years of experience?
Yeah, look, I mean, we have by now seen, let's say, all cases happening. So the one case is there is a process discipline well established. And then over time, there's the desire making sure that the architecture discipline is stepping up. So and then it's great to bootstrap and to start off from there's a process world already established. How can we accelerate the enterprise architecture space? There's also then the other way around where there's an enterprise architecture discipline there. So how can we make sure that this information is even more exposed into the business? By leveraging process modeling, customer journeys, and so on. So these are two different starting points. And then, of course, what we've also seen, introduce it at the same time in kind of lockstep to make sure that enterprise architecture and business process management speaks the same language. What I've seen often is that there's a certain desire sometimes to push enterprise architecture or specific approaches into the IT corner and the other thing into the business corner. Yeah. I believe, honestly, 10 years in this journey, I'm a bit over this discussion, honestly. Yeah. So I can't see this. I mean, business and IT alignment is a topic why enterprise architecture was born 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. So I think I would encourage us, how can we get past this IT and business? And so I think the beauty about this combination, what we do with SAP and previously with Signavio, is that there are specific tool sets which are optimized for the use case. And so the specific personas can really well work with those use cases. And then we're breaking down the silos anyhow. So we believe, we're convinced that it's much better to have special purposed applications, like best of breed solutions, rather than have one big solution which can do everything a little bit. Yeah, and this is why this partnership has been so powerful over the years. Yeah, so hope it addressed the different aspects of your question. Yeah.
Great, and just one more thing quickly in terms of, then we'll bring our panel on in terms of. I've just signed up and very excited about your event coming up in June and again the one in September. So you have event 9 and 10 in Boston. Any highlights to share from that about the experience and what architects will take away?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're doing this event of the Connect, we call it the Linux or the Connect Summit. It's all around sharing in the community. It's a for free event. It's targeted around sharing use cases and stories. So this theme this year is innovation for the always on enterprise. So there's various aspects we're sharing there. The key focus is really on how can we understand and share more best practices around increasing the impact, showing concrete use cases. So it's not a LeanIX product show, marketing show. It's really how can we make sure that that people connect. And the event in Boston will be in person and hybrid. I would be thrilled if we could meet there in person. I think it's going to be a fantastic experience then.
Awesome. And thank you. I look forward to seeing you in person there in Boston. later in June, as well as thank you so much for joining our session, sharing some great insights. And I think another thing you have a lot of good material I've observed over time on professional development for enterprise architects. So I think that's another stream that can benefit our community. So thank you very much, Andre.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for the opportunity to be a part of this event. Wish you good luck. The event agenda is amazing. So really a big congrats for that.
Thank you.